Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone across the globe. Today we're gonna be speaking about how you can get started with AI Builder. This is the third session in our 2-week long Power Platform AI Hack Together. And we hope that you come out of these sessions with something new to add to the amazing projects that you're building. And we all can't wait to see what you end up building come the end of the hack together. This is again, like I said, the third session. On Monday, I believe we had a session about all things Copilot and Power Platform with April and Priya. Today, again, I'll be with a really amazing guest speaking about AI Builder. Tomorrow, we have more with Azure Open AI Service with Daniel, and I'm Robin. But now I want to actually bring in our special guest, who is Ashish Bhati. He is a principal program manager, and he will be helping me showing you guys all the cool things about AI Builder. Welcome.
Hey Gomo, thank you. I am glad to be here. My name is Ashish Bhatia. I'm product manager with the AI Builder team. Been with Microsoft for about 9 years and in product manager role for different AI teams. I'm super
Thank
excited
you.
to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Be really excited to have someone like you just taking out time out of their busy schedule to help us bring the goodness of AI Builder to the people. So I think we don't want to waste too much time. I think we'll just get started. And again, if I mess up, I think Ashish will let me know. So please just we'll be live and interactive throughout the entire hour. Please utilize the chat window to ask us any questions or concerns you might have with what you're seeing on screen or anything that we say, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. We also have our team of Power Platform advocates in the chat as well, answering questions as we go along. So let's get started, and let me just introduce exactly what AI Builder is. We all know about the amazing products within the Power Platform group, but we also have additional services that help bring together the entire suite of logo tools. And one of them is AI Builder, which is a Power Platform capability that allows us to build custom AI models without the need for any specialized programming skills. Right. So with AI Builder and with the AI Builder models, you can help improve your business performances by automating processes and predicting outcomes. So by using AI Builder, you can quickly bring AI to your apps and flows and connect this data to all the various data stores that we have available to you, like Dataverse, OneDrive, SharePoint, or even Azure. So with AI Builder, it gives you access to features such as image recognition, language translation, and even predictive analytics. So adding intelligence to your apps has never been this easy. And when it comes to AI Builder, you can use AI in two main model categories, namely the pre-built models as well as the custom models. But before we get started speaking about what those are, let's just speak about some of the other features that come with AI Builder. First, you can create AI models in minutes with a guided interface. It's very interactive and easy to use, as you will see as I go through the demo shortly. You can also customize your model to a wide range of scenarios. And some of those scenarios are on screen right now. So these are use cases that span from documents to vision to prediction, as well as language, and some of the many other things that we see underneath each of those tabs that allow you to really take your apps to the next level. So when it comes to AI Builder, like I said earlier on, there are two main model types. The first being custom AI models. And these are the models that you build by choosing a specific model type in AI Builder. This can be something like form processing, and then you add your own data. So you train the model by bringing your own business specific data. So all you do is you select the model type, you bring your data, you build, you tag, you train, and then once you publish that model, you can then use it inside of your apps and flows. This is important because we are able to use our own data or use your own data so that each specific use case is specific to what you are trying to achieve. But there are also pre-built models that are pre-trained by Microsoft for you to use straight out of the box. So with a pre-built model, you get an AI model that you just have to click and point to a specific function inside of your app, and you are able to use the app right then and then. So you don't have to build or train or tag multiple documents. It's just simply plug and play. And an example of this is the business card reader pre-built model inside of AI Builder that allows you to bring that functionality into your apps, and you can read data of business cards and save it in a data store like Dataverse or any type of data store that you prefer to use. So with that, um, I would like to just actually show you. There's no use in just speaking about the fantastic abilities of what AI Builder is. So let me just go ahead and have a demo of the brief overview of what AI Builder is. Ashish, just before I move on, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that was spot on. Our goal always is to make AI simple and accessible for everyone, and we kind of try to bring AI in its simplest form. Also, our promise is that we'll keep it no code as much as possible, so that as you're building your models or fine tuning the models or customizing
Right.
the models, you don't have to write code. All you have to do is bring your business data and tell us a little bit more about that business data, and we will train the model for you. Most of the models, as you said, are in pre-trained form factor or pre-built models, so they're ready to go. You don't even have to try to change them. You can use them as it is. So yeah.
Right. Yep. No, that is true. So with that, we'll just go ahead and go straight into our first demo. And again, AI Builder is right inside of your Power Platform portal page there. So here I'm logged into Power Apps. And on the far left-hand side of the screen, you'll then see the AI models tab here. If you don't see it, you can just go to more and just make sure that it's pinned from this list of additional products that are available to you. So with that, we'll just go into AI models and we'll go straight to new AI model. So like I said, we have a wide variety of models to choose from. And in these three or these four main categories, so we have documents, text, structured data, as well as images. So, for example, if you go to text, you'll see we have a sentiment and analysis model, a pre-trained model that we can use. So you can have a piece of text here, and then it'll be able to read that sentiment for you. And then how we can see the difference between a pre-built model and a custom model. Let's go to documents, and you'll see that this model here has the custom model tab. So this type of model is a model that we would have to pre-train with our own data. So this is the documents processing model. So all sorts of documents. So a invoice or a sales order or even a resume. If you want to do some type of automatic processing, this is the model you would use. So let's go ahead and train our own model with our own data. So then we'll just click into it, and then we'll click on create custom model. So there's a couple of steps that I will walk you through before we have a completed published model. So with that, it'll just load up the wizard, real click. There's about three or four options from creating the information that you're going to extract, to tagging, to training, and then to publishing. So this is the first page where we have to choose the specific document type, the types of documents that our model is going to deal with. So we have structured documents, and as it says, these are documents that have a similar format throughout. So something like a contract or a sales order or a mortgage statement. These things typically have the same format. So you would use the structured documents for things like a invoice or a contract where usually it has a similar format. Then we also have the unstructured documents section here. This is for things that have a bit more of a free flowing format. So again, as you can see here, things like a rental agreement, maybe a statement of work or a resume, right? You can't be guaranteed that everyone who uses these documents will always have the same format. So it's nice to know that we can train a model to recognize those types of documents. And again, there is a invoices document type here that is in preview. But for now, we will just go ahead and go with the structured documents type. So that's the first part. And then after that, we're going to need to choose the type of information that we're going to extract from our documents. In this case, we are doing invoices. There are certain elements to a invoice that are common and that we need for our business. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and add a few of those fields. So I have 5 fields that I want to just show you. So we'll have, like, for example, a text field. So let's go ahead and add a text field. So from my invoice, I want to be able to extract the invoice number. I also want to be able to extract, for example, a customer ID. Let's go ahead and have that. I also want to be able to extract the total amount. So that's a number field. So you see we have um, total amount, right? Let's see, one more. We need a due date, so we can use the date field to format date fields. And then we also have one other one that's quite interesting, which is a table. So I'll just go ahead and add that table there uh, just to show you how that would work. So when we select the table data type, we need to name the table, right? And since we're dealing with invoices here, in this case, it'll be the invoice items, right? So let's go ahead and name that as such. And then we'll have to configure our little table here. So there's a few fields that we would need. For example, we'd need the description of the item. We would also need the quantity. So I'll just keep that short, change the data type to a number, add that. And I would also need the item, the line item total, right? So let's keep that as a number as well. So there are different types of fields that we can add to extract from our documents. So once we're happy, we can then go on to the next section here, and this is where we come to the documents that we need. And what is great about AI Builder is that it allows you to add multiple formats in the same model. So, for example, if I was processing invoices from different companies, would I then need to create a single model for every single type of invoice from all these different companies? No, I could just have one model and then have multiple collections of documents inside that one model. And what I mean by that is, let me just go ahead and add a collection. Um, so this is from one company, and then the other collection is from another company. And then once we have those two collections, we would then go ahead and add in our documents. So this is my company data that I'm adding in. So for Contoso, let me go ahead and select a source. So this can be from multiple sources. For this one, I'll just click from my device. So I have my invoices here, Contoso, my training documents. There you go. So I will go ahead and add in these documents and upload them. And it's important to note that when you are using specifically this model, there are various things you need to remember for all the different types of models. But this model specifically, you need at least 5 documents per, per collection to be able to train the model in a sufficient manner, right? If you don't have at least 5 documents, then you can't really train it properly. So in this case, you need 5. For example, if we were dealing with images, you would need 15 images. So there's always a number specific to each model. I don't know, Shish, if you want to share why that is. Why is there a different um, a minimum value for each model?
Our goal is always to kind of minimize the amount of data that customers need to or makers need to bring in to train the model, so that there's kind of less overhead in terms of kind of building the model and training the model. And we have seen that with some of these text models, invoice models, bringing 5 examples just works well. For example, if you pick the invoice model earlier that we were talking about, it already knows a rough structure of an invoice and elements that it needs to extract from an invoice. Similarly for receipt and other things as well. Uh, all you're trying to do is bring your unique data, which the model might not be performing well at, and just show it where those things are located. So fewer examples are okay. When we are working with images, again, there's more diversity of data, and bringing on your unique images to train a model is important, right? And we have seen that a little bit more data is needed there to kind of train the image model, and it just depends on the underlying model and how it's tuned and trained in its prior kind of base layers, I would say.
Right, right. Yeah. So like with like images, if you have multiple images, each image can have a different background. And even if the background is a solid color, that has a big difference when it comes to training how to recognize the specific image and to enable it so that it does not get disturbed by the background color. If there's multiple different types of backgrounds and layouts, then it's able to always identify the specific image that we need. So that's why for images, you might need a bit more data. Yeah, that makes sense. So with that, we have our documents here. So again, once we're done with that, we just click next. And now it comes to the part of tagging, right? So we have the tags, we have the documents, but we need to show the model where these tags actually are. So, for example, in the specific invoice that we have here, we can just say, you know what, the invoice number is usually located in this area. So then we would then associate the invoice number to that specific area on the invoice, right? And then the same for customer ID as well. So let's go ahead and tag that. And then we can do a bit more for something like a date. So we can highlight more than one item on the document. So there is dates there. And then, of course, we also need the total amount, which is at the bottom uh, of our invoice there. And of course, lastly, we have our table. So with the table, it's a bit different. So we'll go ahead and highlight that, associate to the actual table. And you can see there's a bit of a weird interface that we have here. So the first things first is that we need to separate this into rows, right? So using our mouse here, we can just go ahead and click there and click between there. Now it knows that there are 3 specific rows. But now what about columns, right? With the mouse, as you have the control button pressed, you can then go ahead and do the exact same thing. So now we have our table. Let's associate each table column with the specific tag that we had. So for example, the A goes to quantity, the description goes to there, and then we have the line total, which is the item total, right? These are the only ones that we want specifically. But as you can see on the hand side, as I was bringing in these columns and rows, they were starting to populate on the left. And we do have an issue where it's seeing the title as a data row as well. So again, we have this nifty tool where we can just ignore the first row and it just takes the data that we need specifically from that table. So once we're done with that, we can go ahead and click done. And you have to do that for every single document in every single collection that you have. You know, it is a bit long, but at the end, the results are amazing. So of course, we don't have that much time. So I do have a model in another tab where all the documents have been tagged. Hopefully that comes up now. Let's go. Let's see. Let me just refresh this just to have that document load in. So here, all of our documents have been tagged already. And then I'll just show you what are the next steps once they're all tagged. So just hoping for it to load up. Sorry about that. But maybe while it's loading up, let me show you something else when it comes to these documents. Um, let's say for the other collection that we have, right? You can see that we have, while that's loading, we see we have an invoice number, we have the due date, we have the total, we have the table, but we don't have the customer ID. So that's fine because while I can assign the invoice number, I can just say, well, this specific collection doesn't have a customer ID. I can just specify that in my tagged fields here. So it won't need me to tag the customer ID as well. So it's best to have as much information as you'd want to extract, and then for specific formats, you can then customize it like so. So hopefully with that, there you go. We have our tagged models done. Just to show you, all the documents have been tagged, and then we'll just go ahead and click next. Tagging is the last step, and then after that, we can just go ahead and train our model. So what it'll do, it'll just take in all of that data and the documents as well as the text fields, and it will then train the model. And again, just like an online cooking show where I put in the item in the oven and bring it out at the same time, I do have a trained model already here for us. And what's nice is that it gives you all of these details about the trained model, right? As well as a accuracy score, which obviously a higher score makes sense. In this case, it's very high because we had very few documents, right? So it's very easy to get a score that high. So the more data we have, the more documents we upload, that accuracy score might fluctuate. So if you're happy with everything, then you can go ahead and click published. And once again, because of time, we have a published model here already sitting and waiting for us. And this is what it'll look like when it's published, not too different from the training page. So once it's published at this point, you can either do a quick test to make sure that the model is working, but we'll just skip that and take it straight to Power Automate and Power Apps to show you how to use your train model inside of those apps. So again, you can quickly,
I'm
oh,
going to a couple of things before we move on.
sure.
It is also now possible to train with multi-table or multi-page tables. So if your document has a longer table which spans multiple kind of pages, you can tag them as well, right? That was a big ask from our customers or makers early on. So that's one thing. The other thing to make note of is alongside the overall kind of model score, you also get per field kind of confidence score as well, that how confident is the model in identifying each attribute that you're trying to extract, right? And if you see a lower score at any point of time, that gives you an indication that you want to bring in more data to kind of give more examples to the model to learn how to extract that specific information.
Right, right. So like let's just say for customer ID, in our case, we were only able to train one specific type of document. If we had multiple documents and that was the same case, it might not be as confident when it comes to customer ID. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, it totally depends on how the model kind of learns about a specific field. And if you have a specific field in only one collection, and it's just seeing that, it might still give you a high score because it knows that it's only available in that given collection. But
Right.
sometimes the location of a given field is all over the place in multiple collections, and that can cause
Mhm.
confusion to the model. So just bringing a few more examples will help the model to learn that.
Right. Right. No, no, thank you for that. And then I think for now, we'll just use our published model inside of our app. So the first thing is you can directly use this in a Power Automate flow, right? And there's a bunch uh, of like formats and different templates that you can use. The most common template is when we get a invoice as an attachment in an email sent to us. What can we then do with that specific invoice? So let's go ahead and click that template. Um, and it's a rather large one, but it'll first just let you know what are the different triggers and actions that you have available to you. So it's using the Office 365 Outlook trigger because it needs to monitor the inbox for any incoming mail, and then it's using the Office 365 users action to get your specific details, and then it sends you what info it has extracted from AI Builder. And of course, you can customize it to do anything that you wish. So once you're done, you just click on continue. Um, Again, I already have the model, I mean, the flow opened up here. And it's two real things to take note of. One is this trigger. Yes, it monitors emails coming into the inbox folder. But if we expand the advanced options here, you'll see that this includes attachments is also set to yes, because it needs to, for obvious reasons, only monitor emails that have attachments. And to further filter that, in this case, if the subject contains AI Builder, of course, you might have an email that's specific for in voices, but that's fine. Just for this case, it needs to have an attachment and it needs to have AI Builder sets to it. Another one is when it's all all done. Of course, you can then look through this template yourself as well. But we have an email sent back with the extracted data. In this case, I've just extracted the invoice number, the due date, as well as the total amount. Um, and then, of course, you can do so much with this data. You can create a new Dataverse record. You can trigger another flow. What you do with the data is totally up to you. So again, let me just test this real quickly here. And what I'll do is I'll open up an email and I'll send an email to that user that I'm logged in with the subject AI Builder. I'll then go ahead and attach a test invoice. Let's have that attached, and then go ahead and send that email. And as that's sending, if we go to our email here, we should see that email in, right, with the specific invoice here. And one thing I would like to note is that in this one, you can see that the invoice number is scratched out. So it might not, understand, but once you see the details coming in now, you'll see that it knows the general area of where that data sits. So it doesn't really mean that if you tagged it to this specific place, it needs to be in that specific place. However, it needs to be in the general area. So something like this, where it's scratched out, does not disturb it in any way. We also have our due date here, as well as our total amount there. So with that, we'll just go ahead and see the values, and you'll see it extracted the correct values from that invoice. And what's nice with this date field type here is that you have that date type connected, um, uh, because we chose the date data field when we were training the model. So you are able to format that date anyhow you wish. So that's how we can use it in Power Apps. I mean, in Power Automate. Ashish, do you want to move forward, or can I quickly show how to use it in Power Apps?
Yeah, go ahead. A couple of other things I wanted to mention while you switched to Power Apps was, since this is just, again, I think the goal is people are going to hack with these capabilities, so might be fine. But if you're really building something for real world and for kind of enterprise scale, sometimes you will see that new invoices are coming on and the model is not performing well. We have something called feedback loop, which will tell you where model feels less confident about a new incoming invoice, for example, and maybe can pick out all the elements, and it'll flag those documents for you, right? That gives you an indication that you need to go retrain the model or give it these other examples that is not doing a good job with, and again, label them and give it back to the model so that it can improve itself. So it is not that you build the model once and kind of stays relevant forever. There's going to be data drift, new invoice types comes in, and the model is might not be doing a good job, and that is your opportunity to come back and give it more examples, train it, and kind of keep it fresh.
Right, right. No, no, thank you so much. So with that, with Power Apps, it's actually a bit less of a complicated process when it comes to using your AI models. I have just a simple app with three text fields that we will configure shortly. But all you'd have to do to use the model inside of a Power App is you'd go to the Insert tab. Let's search for AI Builder, and then we would select the form processor option there. Let's wait for that to come in. And then once it's in, we'll just configure those text fields to read the data from that form processor. So as you can see, I had the published model as well as the trained model that we eventually published. So let's go ahead and publish that. So then once we have that in, then we can just go ahead and let me do this, make this a bit bigger. We can just go ahead, and then the title of this is Form Processor 2. So inside of our field here, in the default property, we can just reference the Form Processor model um, fields, and we could then take note of all the fields that we have. So in this case, we have invoice number, and then for this, we have the due date as well as the total amount. And once we test the app, we can bring in a form. So let's go to the test documents. We'll bring that in, and it'll slowly try and just analyze any of those details from the documents, and it'll assign that to your properties. And then, of course, you can do with that data as you wish, as was mentioned. This is just to show you how it works. but wherever you want to save that data is totally up to you. So that is the full process of training a custom model and using it in a Power App or Flow. Ashish has something a bit more special to show you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gomo, on that. Let's switch to my screen. So I wanted to kind of give you guys a lay of land as well. Document processing is a big category. You'll see we have a ton of document processing models, either pre-built or then customizable, as Goma was showing. This is the custom model that we were focusing on. But then you can still leverage a lot of pre-built capabilities around invoice processing, receipt understanding, identity document understanding, and things like that. Imagine if you were building a process where you're doing know your customer kind of scenario, or verify the identity of your customers, and if they have identity documents attached or uploaded, then you can easily scan them to extract information and validate it with a database that you might have, right? Similarly for receipt processing, if you have a travel kind of processing system within the company, then again, just uploading pictures of receipts that people might have used during their travel can create a scenario where you can create these travel approval requests by automatically processing all the receipts and things like that. And then text recognition is in general the OCR, right? If some of these specific models are not the ones that you're looking for, and you want to generally extract information from a text, a PDF or something, then again, OCR will kind of do the job. So these are all kind of document related models. There is a ton of text related models where you're trying to understand sentiment of your customer feedback, or reviews of about a product. Then you use something like a sentiment analysis, and based on this given sentiment, you want to probably do another thing. You can also chain these models. So in Power Automate Flow, for example, you can the first step could be to extract a new incoming review for a product, do a sentiment analysis, and based on the sentiment, you might want to send it to two different parts of the flow and things like that. You can do category classification. So given a text, you can define a category or assign a category to it, right? This is super useful if, for example, you have incoming emails about topics, and you want to kind of route the emails in different directions, right? So then you would use something like a category classification. Entity extraction model is a model where you're trying to identify and extract key elements of information from text. So again, you can identify some entities, whether it's people, places, location, or then define your own custom entities, right, that you care about, and train a custom model by giving it some examples, and thus extract entity from an incoming text. This would be good for example, you're doing some kind of rental agreement processing, or even from email, if you are trying to extract order information, right, then that is something that you would leverage from an entity extraction standpoint. There are other models like key phrase extraction, identifying key phrases in the text, language detection and translation. So to be able to automatically, let's say, detect language of an incoming email or text or complaint or review, and then be able to translate it for in different languages. We support 90 languages that you can support translate. And then obviously we mentioned about the custom models. If you're trying to train an entity recognition model for your specific entities, then you can use that custom model. And similarly for category classification, if you want to assign your own custom categories. We have a special model here, which we call text generation. This is the model which is powered by the GPT technology. There's been a ton of excitement in the generative AI space. People have used ChatGPT and other generative AI models. And this specific capability is powered by that technology, right? So let's take a look at this and how it works. In this experience, this is a prompt engineering or prompt builder experience. You will see you're trying to build an instruction, a prompt for the model. And the way it works is any instruction has or prompt has two parts. There's an instruction part which tells the model what to do, and then there is a data part, right? So I'll pull in a few examples. We have populated with some templates, so you can pick some templates and play around. For example, we have something called summarize here. The instruction part here is I summarize the text below in less than 2 paragraphs without adding any new information. If the text is too small, let me know that this is just too short to be summarized, right? So that's my instruction. I need to give it data context. I need to tell it what to summarize, right? So that's the data part that I need to pull in. So let me grab some data that I have here. This is an example of an email. I'll drop the sample email here and I'll let it summarize. This is live demo. We'll see if it works or not, right? So it starts to summarize my email, and I can take a look at it and inspect and see if it works fine and behaves well. Right, so this is great. I can also see that it's giving me an unstructured kind of blob of text. I can give a little bit more structure to the output by saying, hey, let me give it something that like this. I'm gonna add more instructions for it. Again, I'm editing the instruction part of it and not the data. I'm saying, hey, extract all of that information and generate the output in this format where you have the order number. We saw that it's extracting the order number from the email. And then we're saying, hey, there should be order number colon, order number, and then summary colon, summary. So I'm trying to give a little bit more structure to the output, right? So it starts to generate that. If I'm processing it downstream, I can even give it more structure. I can ask it to spit out this information in a JSON so that I can know what the output structure is, and I can parse it. I can drop it into a table and things like that, right? So things that you need to think through when you're building a prompt is what is the task that you're giving to the model? What is the format of the output? You can be very specific about the output format and the data that you want to kind of give it. You can also give it guardrails like I give here. If the text is too small, just let me know that it's too small. You can't summarize it, or so on and so forth, right? So those are kind of key components of any prompt. Let's take an example of Power Apps and how we would use it in Power Apps. So I've built this kind of small demo app. The idea of this is that you're receiving customer complaints and you want to automatically respond to them, or maybe not automatically respond to them, but you want to quickly generate a draft so that a human who is responding to these complaints can quickly kind of generate a draft, review a draft. If they want to change it, and then send it to customer. This will reduce their time to address an incoming query and will thus create kind of productivity gains. Right? So small example. What we need to do in order to kind of get here is, firstly, we need to add the AI model. And the way you add the AI model is if you go to add data, there is, you can add tables, you can add AI models, and you can add connectors. And I had gone ahead and added an AI model called create text with GPT to my application. Once I have this, I can call a predict function on it, right? These are PowerFX functions. No need to be scared. Very simple. They're Excel-like kind of function, and use a very simple structure. What I've done here is I've added a text box to capture a complaint that I can kind of use it as an example to show if it and how it works. I have a button which will generate a draft, and I'll have a text pane where the generative draft will be shown. Right? I can make it more complex by making that field as editable, so I can edit, and then I can even have a submit or send button which can just send that response back to the customer. But again, goal is to keep it simple. What I've also done is on load of my application here, I have set a variable which contains my instruction. Let's inspect that instruction. It has a similar form to the previous instruction. It'll tell the model what to do, right? So in this case, I'm saying, try to generate a response in apologetic tone to the text below, be humble and creative with your response, restate the problem to acknowledge the user, the problem that they're stating, and indicate that we'll shortly address their problem, right? um, and that's it, right? I mean, those are my instructions, and I need to now bring in an incoming instruction complaint and see if the model behaves well. You will see I start with an apologetic tone, right? So we talked a little bit about sentiment analysis, right? So you can create complex workflows. That incoming complaint, you don't know what that complaint is, right? Maybe that's a complaint, maybe this is a request for information or something else, right? So you can either classify or do sentiment, and based on the class or the sentiment, you can route it to a different section in your automation. That could be, let's say, responding to them or something like that. So let's go ahead and run this one. I'll grab some sample text to see how the model behaves. So imagine this is a kind of email coming from one of my customers who is complaining about a product that I've been selling on my website. It's a long document or long kind of email. And as a service agent, I could quickly ask my application to generate a draft for me. And then I can quickly review if everything looks okay in this and it kind of follows my instruction in the ballpark. I can, if I had the kind of interface, I could even edit it, add extra bit of information if it was missing, and then quickly send it as well, right? So that kind of gives you an idea about how you can build something which can leverage GPT to consume an existing set of text and respond to it, right? So that is interesting. There's another common scenario that we see, which is around summarization. A lot of our users use the GPT capability to summarize. I've kind of built a small automation, right? Same model you can use in Power Automate as well. While it's loading, it has kind of, this is the structure. I'm using right now a manual trigger, but you can imagine that you have an incoming newsletter or emails or even documents, right, that you want to summarize. So those could be your trigger, but in this case, I'm using a manual trigger. I'm fetching my Outlook profile to send emails. I've used the GPT model here to summarize, right? And again, we should inspect the instruction. The instruction is summarize the text below in less than 2 paragraphs without adding additional information. Again, summarize it, and if again it's choose a few words, then say you can summarize it, right? So in Power Automate, we have also provided an interface to do prompt engineering right here within the Power Automate designer experience, right? So whatever we were doing in AI Builder earlier from an experimentation prompt building standpoint, you can do it right inside Power Automate and test it out as well, right? And once you have tested, you have to just say, hey, I want to use it in my flow, and you can then bring that tested prompt inside your flow. In this case, this is already ready. It's consuming the input that we will give in the input text, and then the GPT instruction or action is ready to go. You will see we have also added a start and wait for approval. This is an important step when you're working with generative AI. By definition, in an app scenario, you're creating a draft, you're observing that draft, you're overseeing it, and then kind of sending to your customer. We lose some of that ability in automation because the entire point of automation is to kind of automatically do things, right? Whenever there is generative AI involved, you might want to inspect what the generative AI is generating on your behalf, right? So, for example, you are automatically trying to respond to your customers. That can be a risky proposition. If the model hallucinates or creates something wrong, then you might end up sending it to your customer, right? So that's why it's important to understand what your scenario is and then kind of interject it appropriately. And in this case, since I'm creating this summary that I might be sending to my team or something, I want to inspect what the AI model has generated. So I've introduced a step called start and wait, which is an approval step. What will happen is when the flow will execute, it will pause at this step. It will send me an email with all the content that all the summarized content, and then I can review it, edit it, change it, and then send to my team. Right? So it just gives a lot of human agency over the execution of the flow. And that condition is pretty simple. If it was approved, go ahead, send the mail. If not, then inform the runner of the or creator of the flow that something was wrong or this was not approved, for example. So I can go ahead and hit test here and take it for a spin. I will again grab some sample text that I have curated to send to this flow. So yeah, it is asking me for a sample text. Imagine this is coming from an email, a newsletter, a website, or whatnot, right? In this case, we'll just give it a sample large kind of text and ask it to summarize. It should run the flow, and it should then come and pause at the approval step for inspection.
Wanted to just also to just also like go back to how you mentioned that when working with generative AI, you should always try and have that approval step. Is that a practice that we should all be using when using generative AI, or is it just like a nice to have type of thing? Why is it so crucial that we always have a human being that has to oversee the text that AI generates?
Yeah, great question, right? I mean, we've seen and heard in kind of conversations that at times these models hallucinate um, or create non-factual information which is not real, right? They're sarcastic kind of models, and they are in indeterministic state, right? So they kind of stick together different words from its knowledge and create a response for you. And sometimes that response is not accurate, right? So it's super important to have human agency over it. The entire kind of concept of building these capabilities is to create efficiency for ourselves, right? But in that moment, we also want to be careful that this response, this model, this summary is aligned with how we think about, let's say, the summary or this response to a customer. So preserving that human agency is super important because that gives you control and you stay in the control as humans stay in the control when using capabilities like this. And over a period of time, they will become more intelligent and more proficient with things. Hallucination could come down. You could also have scenarios where you are trying to do some classification. You could do classification with the GPT model. So incoming text, you can say, hey, is this a complaint? Is this an order return, or is this just good review? And based on that, you might want to do something. And if it's just classifying between three classes, then it might be a safer scenario, and you might not want to use, let's say, an approval step. But again, most of the time when it's generating net new content, you might want to inspect it because you want to be sure that the model is representing your company, your ethos right, and does have more control over it. So,
Right, right.
yep, that's that. Um, at this point of time, it's waiting for approval. I have closed my email, but I could go to my email. It'll send me an email. I can inspect stuff and send and approve it. And once I approve, everything will go through.
Thank
Gomo,
you.
I want to check with you if we want to stop and pause and see if there are questions that we want to answer, or if you want to summarize the session.
Yeah, no, sure. We do have time for a couple of questions. Someone was asking specifically, is there a way for you to like play with the controls that you have like in Azure OpenAI with things like temperature and tokens and that sort of thing?
That's a great question, right? When we thought about simplicity, what we intended to do was make this model simple to use. So just give the paradigm of instruction and response, and then use that. We have seen from some of the customers they intend to use parameters of the model, like temperature, top P, size of the response, and things like that. Um, we might open those things in future as parameters if there's a lot of request around it. You can still work with it in a way that in as part of your instruction you can tell the model, right? So for example, if you're trying to control temperature, which controls creativity of the model, how deterministic, non-deterministic, how creative you want the model to be. You can inform within the instruction by saying, hey, I want you to not generate a creative response. I want you to stay close to the subject or the information that I'm providing you. Or you can say, hey, I want a creative response in this case, right? So that kind of helps model change course a little bit. Similarly, you can tell the model about the size. I want a paragraph of summary, for example, or I want top 3 items in the summary, and thus control a little bit of that output form factor as well. But again, we understand that fine-grained parameters might be important to some individuals in some scenario, and that is something that we could definitely look into.
Right, right. And just the one more question that I'm saying here is that can you train, I think this is regards to the custom modeling. Can you train the model on different types of documents, but collecting the same information? So I'm guessing like you don't have just invoices. There's so many other types of documents, but you require the same information. Is that possible with AI Builder?
It is, I mean, I'm trying to understand the question a little bit. If we are
So if
processing invoices, right, then there might be different formats of invoices. As long as the model doesn't cares about whether it's invoice or not invoice, right? What it cares about is the information that it is looking for is present in that document. So even if the form factor looks different, even if you don't call it invoice, you can still bring those examples and tell the model where to look for that information. As long as that piece of information is present, the model should be able to extract it.
Right. And what about bringing in custom models into AI builders? Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sometimes we have seen our makers, I mean, even though our persona is low code makers or citizen developers who are trying to solve a business problem or business process or trying to optimize a business process, sometimes we have seen that these individuals will work with pro data scientists or pro developers within the team as well. There are sometimes center of excellence or IT teams who have this pro staff who can work along. In those scenarios, it is possible to bring a model that is developed in-house by professional data scientists and then expose it to business users to be able to use that. So let's say this is some kind of a prediction model that they have built in terms of forecasting or whatnot, sales forecasting, for example, right? Then you can bring that model using a capability called bring your own model. You will own the endpoint, and what we will do is take the input from your flow or your application, send it to that endpoint, get the result back, and then bring that result back into your flow or your application. You will still own the model, the endpoint, and you'll be responsible for what it does, right? But again, we can pipe the results back and forth with your model.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's all we have time for right now. If we can just bring it back to my slides, just to highlight two main resources for this specific session. The first one is aka.ms/try AI builder. So if you want to, sign up for a trial to use any one of these models inside of your own apps and flows, then you can do that. Two, there is a free trial to AI builder. I believe that you can use some of these models as well. And then the specific use case that I walked through where I was training those documents can be found on aka.ms/learn form processing. So every single step plus additional info about each step and what you need to look out for when building your own custom model can be found through that link as well. This is not the last live session this week. Tomorrow we have Daniel and Robin who will be showing you how you can leverage Azure Open AI Service inside of the Power Platform. With things like Azure Open AI, that's some of really great stuff that's going to be shown tomorrow there. So please be sure to check it out. And the rest of the week, the rest of the hack, we are available on the forum for you to answer any questions that you might have as well. But for now, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you,
hope to
everyone.
see
Enjoy
you.
the hack.